December 7th, 1941. The morning sun painted a peaceful scene over Pearl Harbor on the island of Oahu. The waters were calm, and the American battleships of the Pacific Fleet sat quietly at anchor. For the thousands of sailors stationed there, it was just another Sunday. Some were still asleep, others were getting ready for breakfast, or maybe planning a relaxed day off. Radios played softly, letters were being written home, and the air was filled with the easy sounds of a base at rest. War felt like a distant rumor, something happening on the other side of the world. No one could have imagined that in just a few moments, this tranquility would be shattered, and the United States would be violently pulled into the greatest conflict in human history. But to understand how this day came to be, we need to look thousands of miles across the ocean, to Japan. In the years leading up to World War II, Japan had transformed into a major military power. Its industry was booming, but as an island nation, it had a critical weakness: a severe lack of natural resources, especially oil. To fuel its ambitions for expansion, Japan looked to its neighbors. In 1931, it invaded Manchuria, and by the late 1930s, it was engaged in a brutal, full-scale war in China. This aggressive expansion deeply concerned the United States. American leaders saw Japan's actions as a threat to stability in the Pacific and a danger to their own interests. Washington responded first with diplomacy, but when that didn't work, they turned to economic pressure. The U.S. cut off exports of steel and scrap metal to Japan. Then came the final crippling blow: a total oil embargo. For Japan, this was a national crisis. Its war machine, its navy, and its air force ran on imported oil. Without it, military leaders calculated they had only months of fuel reserves left. They were cornered. The choice was stark: either retreat from their conquered territories and bow to American demands, or go to war. Inside the Japanese government, the debate was intense. Some argued for a peaceful solution, but the military hardliners won out. They believed war with the United States was not just necessary, but inevitable. But they were also realists. They knew that in a long, drawn-out war, America's massive industrial power would eventually overwhelm them. If Japan was going to have any chance at victory, it had to strike first, and it had to strike with devastating force. Their target? The heart of American naval power in the Pacific, Pearl Harbor. Destroying the U.S. Pacific Fleet would, they hoped, cripple America's ability to fight back. This would give Japan a crucial window of time, perhaps 6 months to a year, to conquer Southeast Asia, secure the resources it desperately needed, and build a fortified defensive perimeter around its new empire. By the time America recovered, Japan would be too entrenched to be dislodged. The plan was audacious and incredibly risky. It hinged entirely on achieving total surprise. The weapon of choice would be aircraft carriers, a revolutionary idea for the time. A strike force of 6 carriers, carrying over 350 aircraft, was assembled in secret. Pilots trained for months, practicing low-level bombing runs. Engineers modified torpedoes to work in the shallow waters of Pearl Harbor and developed special armor-piercing bombs designed to sink battleships. Every detail was meticulously planned. In late November 1941, under a strict cloak of radio silence, the Japanese fleet slipped out of port and began its long, tense journey across the northern Pacific, a route chosen specifically to avoid detection. As they sailed closer to Hawaii, the sailors and pilots knew they were on the verge of a mission that would change the world forever. Back at Pearl Harbor, a sense of complacency reigned. While American intelligence knew that war with Japan was a real possibility, few believed Hawaii was a likely target. Most commanders assumed any attack would come much farther west, in places like the Philippines. As a precaution against sabotage, planes on the airfields were parked wingtip to wingtip, making them easier to guard on the ground, but creating perfect targets for an air attack. Anti-aircraft ammunition was kept locked away in storage. On the morning of December 7th, A new and still unproven technology radar picked up a large formation of planes approaching Oahu, but the report was tragically dismissed. An officer on duty assumed it was a group of American B-17 bombers scheduled to arrive from the mainland that day. No alarm was sounded. No warning was given. At 7:48 a.m., the first wave of Japanese aircraft appeared in the skies over Pearl Harbor. The peaceful Sunday morning erupted into chaos. Torpedoes sliced through the water, striking the unsuspecting battleships lined up on Battleship Row. Bombs rained down on the ships and the airfields, turning the harbor into a hellscape of fire, smoke, and twisted metal. Explosions ripped through steel hulls, and thick black smoke billowed into the sky. On the ground, American planes were destroyed before they even had a chance to take off. One of the most horrific moments of the attack came when a bomb pierced the deck of the USS Arizona, igniting its forward ammunition magazine. The resulting explosion was catastrophic, tearing the massive battleship in half and killing 1,177 sailors and Marines in an instant. The ship sank in minutes, entombing most of its crew within its fiery hull. Nearby, the USS Oklahoma was hit by multiple torpedoes and quickly capsized, trapping hundreds of men inside. For days after, rescue crews worked tirelessly, cutting through the hull, listening for the faint tapping of survivors trapped in the darkness below. But even in the face of this overwhelming surprise attack, American servicemen fought back with incredible courage. Sailors manned anti-aircraft guns, sending streams of fire into the sky. Pilots scrambled to the few planes that weren't destroyed and managed to get airborne, fighting against impossible odds. Medics rushed into the smoke and flames to treat the wounded, while sailors risked their own lives diving into the burning, oil-slicked water to pull their comrades to safety. Countless acts of heroism unfolded amidst the chaos. The attack came in 2 waves and lasted less than 2 hours. When it was over, the Japanese planes turned and flew back to their carriers, vanishing over the horizon as quickly as they had appeared. They left behind a scene of utter devastation. 8 battleships were sunk or heavily damaged. Nearly 200 aircraft were destroyed. Over 2,400 Americans were killed, and more than 1,000 were wounded. A stunned silence fell over the smoking, wreckage-filled harbor. But the attack was not the complete victory Japan had hoped for. Crucially, America's 3 aircraft carriers were not in port that day. They were out at sea on maneuvers. The base's vital fuel storage tanks and repair facilities also remained intact. The U-Pacific Fleet was bloodied and bruised, but it was not destroyed. News of the attack spread like wildfire across the United States. Families gathered around their radios, listening in shocked disbelief. The next day, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed a joint session of Congress. His voice, steady and resolute, declared December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. He asked for a declaration of war against Japan, and Congress approved it almost unanimously. This sleeping giant had been awakened. The attack on Pearl Harbor ended America's long-held policy of isolationism and united the country with a singular, determined purpose. Factories across the nation switched to wartime production, and millions of men and women enlisted in the armed forces. The attack that was meant to cripple America instead ignited a fire of resolve that would ultimately lead to Japan's defeat and change the course of world history forever. Today, the waters of Pearl Harbor are calm once more. The USS Arizona Memorial stands as a silent, solemn tribute above the sunken battleship, a permanent tomb for the men who lost their lives. It serves as a powerful reminder of the cost of war, the importance of vigilance, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit in the face of tragedy. Thank you for watching. If you found this story meaningful, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more journeys into history. We'll see you next time.